I know you're not going to believe this, but it's true. The midterm elections, I can't believe I've been saying this, actually started the moment Donald Trump won the presidential election. For the Democrats, who is going to lead the way forward? Well, it is up in the air. All right, Steph, we talked about it briefly in the last segment, but Republicans control everything. What should the next moves be for the Democratic Party? They don't even know who's supposed to be in charge, really.
Well, let's just first talk to what they should do in reaction to what happens at the White House, right? And you already see Democratic governors coming together for this Governors Safeguarding Democracy, right, which is a level up from what happened in the last Trump administration. You saw a lot of attorneys general in the states suing the Trump administration. Maura Healey in Massachusetts comes in. She's now governor there, right? So they will react to certain policies that are put into place. And what were they going to react to? Immigration investigations. The immigration thing is the thing that I think is potentially the most volatile, because what if you enter a situation where you have federal agents going to Democratic states and cities to look for migrants? What do state officials do in response to that? And does that create I don't even know what that looks like, but that seems really volatile.
Max, if Democrats are in the wilderness right now and they don't have power, who is there to hold the line and push back against Trump right now?
So Hakeem Jeffries is the leader of the Democratic Party in my book, and I think that will come exceedingly into focus irrespective of the DNC chair race. He is the best messenger, the best leader, the best uniter in the party. What you're also going to see, though, is Abigail Spanberger and her 2025 Virginia gubernatorial race be a huge bellwether for the future of the party. Then Wes Moore's 2026 and Josh Shapiro's 2026 gubernatorial races, which they'll use potentially to start off a presidential race. All of these are going to be really, really significant, but perhaps the most important thing will be what is the message that unites the midterm elections for the Democrats. In 2018, it was anti-corruption. In 2006, it was actually the same. Both times the Democrats flipped the House. I suspect that they will come back to some message in opposition to what is going to be rampant corruption in the Trump administration. What is deregulation to one person, what is cutting red tape to one entity, is a massive profit boom to somebody else. And that's going to be a very key message in this.
Yeah, that's also the whole hustle with tariffs. It's not who's getting tariff. It's not who's being faced with a tariff. It's who's getting an exception. Another line of defense is the media, is journalists. We know that that's a check on the president and his power, but Donald Trump is already using his usual playbook, right? Threatening to file a lawsuit, pushing the idea of pulling broadcast licenses. Even if he doesn't do it, the mere threat or fear of it, does that end up putting the media or parts of the media in a position that they start to censor themselves or fear Donald Trump or just pull it in?
Well, we saw the Washington Post and we saw the LA Times before the election, I think, pull it in some. And I think that there's going to be all kinds of intimidation, review of FCC licenses. I think where they will really take it to the media is the major media companies, Paramount, which owns CBS, NBC, which owns Peacock, and Warner Brothers Discovery, which owns Max. These are streaming services which are in many ways the futures of their company, and all have said they need some kind of merger, joint venture there. And the government's ability, given his distaste for the news organizations that are also owned by those companies, to keep that from happening while everybody says, oh, this is going to be a great environment for mergers and acquisitions. When it came to AT&T's acquisition of the company that owns CNN, he had no problem basically keeping the antitrust division in a position of letting that happen, and it finally happened a year and a half later through the courts.
But
so that's going to be a major
hitting the business side of these companies will hurt the companies for sure. But how is that going to trickle down to me and my job and what I do every day? It's not. What would have a chilling effect is if individual reporters are targeted for stories that they do. And that is a threat that's out there, but it's also a threat that gets the base all excited because they don't trust us, and could be just something that was said. So
Mary, can I just give you an example?
Yeah.
3 days after Donald Trump won, as soon as Donald Trump won, I sent him a note and I said, congratulations. Okay? I root for the country. Let's see what happens. Somebody very close to him in his inner circle called me yelling and screaming about the media and this and that. And they said to me, I want to remind you of something. And I was all ears. And they said, don't ever forget, if you hit Donald Trump, he'll hit you back twice as hard. But if you love him, he'll love you even harder. The reason this is such a ridiculous notion is we shouldn't have the president loving us or loving us harder. That's actually gross, right? And the person went on to say, look at the success Kim Kardashian and Van Jones had working with that administration. They went there as criminal justice activists, right? We're their reporters, journalists covering the White House. So how are we going to do this when that's their mindset, right? When the outgoing call is, Steph, you gotta love him harder.
But so this is a more fundamental problem I think we're gonna have to deal with, which is this is Trump 2.0. Frankly, there are two things going on. Journalists are exhausted. Journalists are facing those kinds of calls. And also, it's a completely different media environment. Last time around, it rained for the media when Trump was in office. It was a huge boon. That is not our media climate right now. I don't think we're going to see the huge amounts of money pouring in. I don't think anyone thinks the Washington Post, especially after what just happened, is the savior of democracy here. So those are two problems that I think it's almost like the media could quiet itself, and that worries me.
I don't think the media is going to be meaningful constraints on Trump, nor do I think the minority in the House or in the Senate are going to be meaningful constraints. I think the one real constraint on him, because he loves ratings, is going to be the bond market and its impact on the stock market. When it comes to deportation, when it comes to excessive tax cuts, when it comes to excessive tariffs, all that is going to be wildly inflationary. The bond market's not going to tolerate it. The bond market, driving interest rates, mortgage rates, et cetera, is going to have a real damaging effect on the stock market. That he will pay attention to.
But Max, beyond just the media, right? So during the Trump administration, the first one, the media, put their belts on. Let's go. We're going to fact check and we're going to cover the hell out of them. And America was watching. They were engaged. They cared. Right after his first inauguration, the Women's March was the next day. And then the March for Science. And then, over and over. Right now, people are exhausted, worn down. Many, many Democrats, volunteers felt like they put it all out there and they are burying their heads.
Sure.
Do you think that's going to last? Or do you think come January 21st, Americans are going to start to get re-engaged and say, hold on a second?
So to a certain extent, that's good for the future of the Democratic Party, that we not go through this period of resistance, but actually go through a period of rebirth. Because clearly what we saw for 8 years is that you can't have a successful long-term party that just exists as the anti-MAGA party that somehow it can include under its umbrella the Cheney family and AOC. That's not going to be long-term sustainable, particularly for presidential elections. But with that also being said, look, we did go through this finger-pointing period in 2017, and a few months later, the party became awfully unified in opposition to the crazy stuff that Donald Trump was doing. And it's clear as day right now that, yes, they may be more effective and organized, but they ain't less crazy. And so you will see, I think, a strong political opposition that will translate into electoral victories in 2026.
One of the most provocative things I've read in the last couple of weeks was an op-ed in The Bulwark that basically argued, you need to let Trump be Trump. Do not help him. If he wants to deport people, okay. If he wants RFK to lead HHS, let him do it, because the people voted for this. Now, I have issues with this. I think it's a very privileged position to say that.